All right, so Federalist 10. Among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union, none deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of faction. Okay, so there's some terms here that you probably are not aware of. Faction would be the big one. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But let's start at the beginning here. Among the numerous advantages. So numerous means many. So among the many advantages promised by a well-constructed union, and notice the union is capitalized there. They're talking about the United States, okay? The union of the various states into a country. So a well-constructed government, a well-constructed country. None deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of factions. So more accurately developed, okay? Basically, they're saying to be accurate means to be correct. Well, let's get the accurate definition. Accurate definition of accurate. Okay, correct in all details, exact. Okay, so none deserves to be more correct in all details and developed, meaning the explanation for why, than its tendency. And tendency means basically its ability or its ability that that's usual ability. It usually happens to break and control the violence of faction. So if you break something, snap it. You stop it from being whole, stop it from working. Control means, okay, let's keep it contained, let's keep it controlled. The violence, we all know what violence is, of faction. And faction is the word you probably do not know. Okay? A faction is a small, organized, dissenting group within a larger one, especially in politics. Okay? So when you think of factions, you want to think of groups that have very specific ideas, very specific target ideas. So that may be part of a larger group. And it can be almost anything. You can think of them as special interest groups, would be particularly small factions like Save the Whales or anti-smoking or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or all of those would be factions with a specific focus. You can also think of it as larger groups. So you can think of it as people who are, all for First Amendment rights. I don't know that there's anybody that's not for First Amendment rights, so that may not be the best example. But any special interest, any idea that isn't held by the majority of the population would be considered a faction, okay? And often these groups have very specific issues. So they're what we call single issue voters. So people who want, us to go all Green New Deal kind of stuff. They're going to be, if they choose to vote based on that thing only, they're most likely going to vote Democrat. So these factions, one of the biggest fears of the founders was that a faction would take control of all three branches, okay, would take control of the government, so that a small percentage of the population would then impose their will on the rest of the people. And so they intentionally designed the government and the way we elect officials to try and prevent this from happening. So things like elections every 4 years for president, for House of Representatives every 2 years, for Senate, we have some elected every 2 years. So essentially every 2 years, the general population has the chance to vote out the existing government and vote in a new government that's more in line with what the majority of the people want. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. The government is designed in such a way, and our elections are designed in such a way to control the violence of factions, to prevent these radical groups or these single interest groups or these special interest groups from taking over and imposing their will on other people. So there you go.